Boker Tov. So, on the basis of the insights we've discussed from Rav Dessler, that there's an external way of coming near to Hashem, speaks to it more from the physical expression of emotions that bring us to even to euphoria and to recognize that there's a spiritual world above us. On the other hand, in order to get to the inner core of our divine image and to improve our personality, it's important for us to constantly repeat, to use the way of repetition, which also brings the example. The Yetzer Hara works in the same direction. In order to, as we say in the morning, the first statement we make in the morning, and then the first words of the Shulchan Aruch, I've said before, Hashem always before me, to have an awareness that we are guided and given blessing by Hashem through the Tzelem Elokim, through a divine image which exists within us. So on the basis of this, I'd like to give an interpretation in the mitzvah of tzitzis, which we refer to in our daily prayer. And there's the following question. It says that you should, Vosulem tzitzit, we should make the tzitzis at the four corners of the garment. And in various ways, the tzitzis remind us of the 613 mitzvot. And it says, Uzechatem et kol mitzvot Hashem, thereby you will remember all the commandments of Hashem through the tzitzis. And as we explained, in fact I used this one of the illustrations yesterday, that the mitzvot work on the external to bring us to the internal. They bring out the external, but not just as euphoria, as a constant accompaniment to our daily life. This is the tzitzit. Then it says, Uritem oto, you should see the tzitzit. Then you remember all the mitzvot Hashem, and you won't go astray after your inner instincts of the Yetzer Hara, and after the stimulus of the eye, that also frequently brings you to become subservient to instincts. But then it says, again, Leman Tizkaru, not just Uzachatem, you remember, but Leman Tizkaru, you go on Tizkaru, remembering, and then so you do all my mitzvot. And then Vitem Kedoshim, let them become holy to your God. So, I don't know if you think what we're really saying is just repeating. But repeating in quite different words. And the question is, why the first verse I quoted to you speaks about your God. You should remember the mitzvah of your God. Then it said, Man Tizkaru, and you should remember what's Chatem et mitzvotai, my commandments. It's Hashem speaking to us directly. He is speaking to me. He said, thereby you remember my mitzvot, and then you be holy, and then say to your God. It doesn't say to me. It doesn't mean to me, you be holy unto me, but you reach Kedusha. So perhaps we can explain this as follows. What is Kedusha? So surely this verse is connected with the beginning of Parshat Kedoshim, where where it also says that Kedoshim Tiyu, Yishmael Ki Ani Hashem Kadosh, because I am holy. So Hashem is speaking the first person. So Kedusha really means dedication. You'll be dedicated to me on the person level, because you'll feel you're Tzelem Elokim. You'll feel that it's God who is above you, and it's God who is within you, and thereby you will link up with a constant awareness of Hashem, and then you reach Kedusha. Then the Kedusha will express itself also externally. So you've got to start from the external, from outside, but then you've got to work on it continuously through repetition until it becomes a part of your character. As I said yesterday, it's the deed, it becomes a habit, and the habit, if you just treat the external habit, it will be destructive. But if you treat it as a habit to change yourself, then you can change human nature. You can change the natural human nature of the person. He feels, I exist, the world around me exists, and my own self is constantly being influenced by the physical world around me through all my physical senses. So how do you change that? To recognize that the physical world is not the ultimate reality. You're living in it. You can only do it in this manner of constantly repeating this lesson, that we've always got to keep on striving for closest to Hashem, until that becomes part of our personality. So that's the difference between when it's everything is the third person. It says in the Torah, you have to worship God, and we find even, let's say, Aseret HaDibrot begin on the personal level. The first two commandments, the Aseret HaDibrot, in the Decalogue, they're all in the first and second person. I am your God, and you should have no other gods before me. Then afterwards, when it sends out blaspheming, it says, you shouldn't take the name of God in vain, because he will not hold innocent the person who takes his name in vain. The same type of changeover, personality. And I think I've just often tried to understand this throughout the verses of the Chumash, because you find frequently there's a changeover from Hashem speaking to me directly, or to people of Israel directly in the first person, and sometimes it's in the third person. Now the Parshat Tzitzis also ends with this. It's Ani Hashem Elokechem. After it's gone back to the third person, V'yetem kedoshim le'elokechem, to your God, then it goes over, not your God, no, I am Hashem, your God. Behind that is myself. I took you out from Egypt. That's what's it. So Ani Hashem Elokechem, that means it's the ultimate ego. Let's put it this way even. We are all egocentric. That means the center of our lives is my own self. Egocentric. To transform egocentricity into being theocentric, to say God is our center, that's a whole procedure. And you see, in fact, you see this in throughout Kriyat Shema. If you go, the first parsha of Kriyat Shema is all in the third person. But the second parsha, it keeps on changing. And the third parsha also. On the basis of this, you can understand these changes. So I want to connect this also with the following insight, which also came to me more strongly after having, together with you, tried to understand the depths of the interpretation of Rav Dessler, who we just followed. In our Gemara class, which most of us have been seeing to recently, we also have a discussion what you have to say on Rosh Chodesh Ya'aleh V'Yavo. So this I heard also from Rav Dessler. What do we say on Rosh Chodesh? Rosh Chodesh is the time we have to renew ourselves, renew our bond with Hashem. So we say Ya'aleh V'Yavo V'Yagia Yareh V'Tzeh V'Shema Yukei V'Zocher. but lots of Yizacher. The way we've really discussed it, what does it mean, Zichar, Leman Tizkaru, with the Chanta? It's to allow the awareness of God to enter into our subconscious self. Now that's how it's described in any case by Rishon Salanta and also by Rav Dessler. It means to try and get our subconscious self to recognize that there can be an identity between my own ego, which becomes submerged in the Anochi Hashem Elokecha, in the ego of the human existence, of the world's existence, the ultimate spiritual power. This is like we have Baruch Nafshes Hashem. We talk about Melech often say, let my soul bless Hashem. So the sages say it means just like our inner soul, which sees and cannot be seen, and which goes through all the limbs of the body. You can't say where it is. Same as also God Himself. He sees but cannot be seen. And His presence is in every part of the human world, and every part of not the human world, every part of the whole universe. And yet He's beyond it. It's the same principle. So therefore my own ego begins to make a link with Hashem. So also, on Rosh Chodesh, we have to renew ourselves. So we have to go, the sage there, through the 7 levels of the heavens. And you look at the commentaries, they say, these are the 7 levels of the heavens. If you want, in other language, in other metaphors which are brought, the 7 sphirot, or the 7 levels of heavenly spiritual existence. On Rosh Chodesh, we have to renew ourselves to recognize the spiritual roots of our life and the spiritual roots of the life of the universe. So Abdes used to say, it means going more and more inside yourself. So the higher the heaven, the more deep it is in the soul. V'yizacher therefore means to get to the roots of the human soul. If you want a modern expression of this, it's given quite well in Viktor Frankl's The Unconscious God. So that is Viktor Frankl is well known for the concept of the search for meaning, logotherapy. He's not so well known for his later stage, when he went much deeper. And this is what he works on. This is what the Maharal goes in that direction also. All the deeper exponents. The Kabbalistic writings, they speak about these matters with metaphors, with language, which one doesn't easily understand, but this is what lies behind it. So I think it also explains to us the importance of the Tefillah Ya'aleh V'Ya'avor. And we learned at the end of the fourth perek, which we're doing now, we find also this concept of how it's important not to miss Ya'aleh V'Ya'avor. But this expresses the renewal, the monthly renewal, which was already declared to the people of Israel when we were still in the depths of the impurity of Egypt. But we were told, go and renew yourself. You've got the ability to change, to reach a high level. So this is what we've been dealing with. Now I want to continue with the Lichta Meliyahu, and those who can follow in the Hebrew will carry on with the next verse, with the next page, of which I distribute to you here. Follow in the Hebrew. And I'd like to say today, if you want, since I try to paraphrase it, first literally, it's a good way whereby you can also understand more of these Hebrew terms. Here, Desta continues with the concept of Golut. as we've discussed them until now. So, it says here on page 458, we're discussing the struggle between Yaakov and Esau. And there's a great deal in this. So, Chelko Shel Esau, what was really the special portion of Esau in life? No, we have the principle, who is rich, hasameach b'chelko, who's happy with his portion. In the words of the sages, the portion of a person, which also referred to in our tefillah, v'ten chalkeinu b'torah, give us our portion in your Torah. Every human being is given a different portion in life. Physically, every person's body is different to the other, and every person's physical needs are different. His strengths and weaknesses from birth are different. The society into which he is brought, the family into which he is brought, is different. Everyone's got a special task. From the point of view of the divine providence, which goes on upon every human being. So, every person has got different qualities. So therefore now I paraphrase. The different qualities, characteristics of a person, which are imprinted upon him from the time of pregnancy and when he's born, what do? They fix the point of his freedom of choice, but they don't affect his power of freedom. So, Pastor, I want to put this in the following context, this line. You'll find many sociologists, biologists, and psychologists will say the human being is a product of nature and nurture. That means of heredity and environment. As heredity and environment that influence each individual in different ways. And some say heredity and environment even controls every aspect of human behavior, like it seems to do in the animal world. And that's why they've even gone to the conclusion, just like in the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal world. Scientific investigation demonstrates that on the whole, everything is influenced by nature and nurture, by heredity and environment, by the genetic source, which produces growth and brings about reproduction in the vegetable animal world. So therefore they say, even the development of the different species is, how do you explain why there's so many different species? Why? Because that everything goes bit by bit with changes and the struggle for existence. So even though amongst the evolutionists there are two schools. Some say the predominant aspect is heredity, and some say the more formative aspect is the environment, which influences and is the cause of development from one species to the next. Of course, we do find these aspects to be common to the different beings in the world. So, some say the human being is not different, but the basic principle of the Torah is the human being is unique. And this is indicated in the Chumash, primarily by the two names for God. The first chapter, so God's name is Elokim. And then afterwards, the second chapter, God's name is Hashem Elokim. Which has caused all sorts of weird concepts, or what's known as the hypothesis of different sources according to the names of God. But the point behind this is that there's a big distinction. God has created physical aspects of life, and it's quite true that with regard to certain physical aspects, the body of the person is influenced by nature and nurture, and that predetermines what the body is going to be like. But the human being's got an extra dimension, the soul. Even the first chapter it says God created the soul. And it's interesting that verse in the Chumash where it says, God said, let us make a man, no image. Where it's written, then God created man in his image. And he breathed into him the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And then, that is verse 26. The 26 is a hint at the name of Hashem, the numerical value of the ineffable name of Hashem, which is only mentioned in the second chapter. So even with the external creation of man, he was already given a soul which is not yet described. Where is it described? In the second chapter. It's described in much more detail. So it means like this. Hashem has created nature. Nature works according to principles of heredity and environment. Different ways, although it's emphasized there are different species, because the whole concept of nature and nurture is different in different species. It's an aspect of constant creation. But when you come to the human being, it is unique. The human being is unique amongst all the beings in the world, that he has been given the soul as a part of the divine power of intelligence, divine power of creativity. So, where is this expressed? There's a beautiful description in the tractate Nida, which speaks about birth. And there it says that before birth, and the soul has a pre-world, pre-life existence, as is well known today already, that there is certainly not just in the embryonic stage a physical life, there's also a soul life. In fact, through what's called regression therapy, human beings can sometimes recall what happened before birth in different ways. Because there's in any case, the Gemara says like this, that every person is born to become a saint. You can become a saint. It says the angel, that means the divine energy, which produces conception and birth, obviously the human acts of the parents, but the soul life is guided by Malach, that is given to make an oath that all your life you've got to be a saint and not a sinner. And with the essence of the inner soul is to become a saint, to choose virtue, whatever situation you're in. It says there, but what is fixed, is fixed if this soul is going to be rich or poor, physically strong or physically weak, and even also whether they have high intelligence or have very little intelligence. These are fixed. What do you mean they're fixed? These are Hakol b'yedei shamayim. These are in the hands of heaven. In other words, there's divine predeterminism as far as this is concerned, which is known to us here below through investigation of a person's potential. And people have different maximum abilities whether it comes to fit the physical self, the body, when it comes to economic existence, which depends on so many external conditions over which a person doesn't have control, and also even the maximum or minimum of intelligence which is capable. But whether he's a saint or a sinner, that is not decided. That depends entirely upon his own self. And there he has complete freedom, to be one or the other. Now this does not mean that has he got complete freedom to be a prophet on the highest level, or the worst criminal in his town. No, it means that he's got a certain potential. What he does with the potential, whether he uses it to choose virtue or to choose vice, depends on him. Each person's got the choice. And this is the essence of the human soul. So, this means, Hakol b'Shamayim, Kut b'Yeret Shamayim. Human beings, to some extent, a child of his environment, and the child development of his genetic potential given by his parents and grandparents. But what he does with it, if he's using it for good or for evil, depends on him. The sages say. Of course, now let's give briefly. What does it have to do with Yaakov and Esau? It says about Esau that he was born with a lot of red hair, and therefore he's called Edom. It's called Edom. Who else was called Edom? David HaMelech was also completely red. So you say the red means it was bloodthirsty, but it can be used for good. Yeah, it's filled with life, filled with strong sensuality, but it can be used for Hashem, it can be used for evil. It can be used for love, it can be used for lust. It can be used for killing people, destroying them, but it's also used to be a surgeon, to be a mohel, to be a shochet. The person who's born under the aegis of Ma'adim, of Mars, which is red, that's what's called Ma'adim in Hebrew, can become very good. So it was Esau could have become the David HaMelech. And David HaMelech could have descended to the level of Esau. So that's the concept here. So so it says here, fourth line down, someone who's born with many very virtuous qualities, then the point of his freedom of choice is on a high level. His portion in sanctifying the name of Hashem is not to remain as he is, what he has from his ancestors and from his environment, but to increase very much in doing loving kindness and good deeds. Hashem expects him in Torah, Tefillah, in the service of Hashem, to be on the highest level. He begins at the background till he can reach Achim Magir with his own power to a far higher level than that with which he was born. On the other hand, someone is born with a great deal of evil qualities, which are criminal, and which lead him to destruction and lust, his portion in sanctifying the name of Hashem is to battle strongly against his nature and transform all those qualities for the good, to use them for the service of Hashem. For there's no quality which is not needed in order to create a holy world. So this is even expressed in the word kadosh, because in Hebrew, which we've explained also, the word was created in Hebrew, means Hebrew expresses the basic concept. The word kadosh means to be dedicated to the maximum one's ability. Dedicated to what? Kadosh means to Hashem, to holiness, to saintliness. Kadesh means to depravity. Kadeshim are known to be the most depraved individuals, especially who go into sexual perversions and to pervert others. That's Kadesh. Because there's an ambivalence, human nature. You can use your powers for good or for bad. So this is demonstrated by Esau. Esau could have used all his qualities for the service of Hashem, and then he would have become part of Avodat Hashem. In fact, that explains a little bit why Yitzchak favored Esau. He thought, Esau, you can use all his powers to serve Hashem. Okay, this needs a lot of further elaboration. Maybe now you'd like to ask some questions.
I don't understand how it works. If it comes from the subconscious into the conscious, where does the ideas come from to get into the subconscious? After they come into the conscious, but where does it start? Where do they come from to get into the subconscious?
So mankind as a whole, trends in civilization, it can come to the subconscious through divine revelation, and that's according to what we know. Hashem revealed to Adam Arishon the basis of the preservation of the soul for the purpose of holiness. But that's what he was taught in Gan Eden. When he abused it, so then the generations maybe had a slight memory of it, but gradually the memory of this revelation disappeared until the time of Noah, when he came to a very low level and they'd forgotten about morality. Then, after the deluge, Hashem again revealed basic morality to mankind, to Noah. And it was preserved to some extent by his son Shem. But it wasn't strong enough to change society. Shem preserved it. It says, if you read, go superficially, but even more, read between the lines, read the Jewish tradition. He even established the yeshiva of Shem and Eva, Eva was his son, where they taught the divine traditions concerning saintliness, how to understand the true purpose. Shem means the true purpose of the world. But majority of mankind, it became forgotten. Until Avraham Avinu restored it. From Avraham Avinu we have the revelation, he spread it in his environment until we come to Am Yisrael. We came from him, then came the revelation of Hashem to millions of our ancestors in the Decalogue, and became known to mankind through what they call the Ten Commandments. So it became known to Christianity, to Islam, and to many others, even outside. Some of the traditions of Avraham Avinu became known in the Eastern philosophies and religions. That's how it spread. But in addition, that's what's hinted at right in the first chapter of the Chumash. It is deeply ingrained in the soul of man. And whereas sometimes it's conscious, people when people say, I'm always trying to follow my conscience, what is their conscience? The conscience is not what I am, but what I ought to be. Yeah? That's different. And there are many people, although they don't follow their conscience all the time, but they get pricks of the conscience. They get pricks of what I ought to be. And I know I'm not what I ought to be. Only Hashem can say I'm what I am. We all have to be better than I am. Yeah? That's the conscience tells me you should be doing better. My conscience tells me that I am not doing what I should be doing at all. Yeah? I'm not good enough to other people, and I don't use my talent sufficiently well. Maybe some say overdo it, that's also no good to overdo things, because the conscience tells me I've got to use my physical, my mental abilities in a manner that it can be preserved and used to the maximum, which means I also have to look after my body to make sure the body has its correct balance. So it's not, each person, his situation, has got to recognize, am I really fulfilling the inner demands of my conscience? And sometimes it's to transfer it, like you asked, to transfer it from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind is not so simple. You know, consciously a person says to himself, "Yeah, I'm fine, very good, I'm fine, I'm doing things very well, yeah, that I'm supposed to be doing." But when you go more deep inside yourself and think that's the concept of standing in front of Hashem, then I realize I've got a long way to go.
Is Hashem always
So
going to
just
be...
so one of the things I have to do now is to not to overdo things, not to continue with the shir. So now it's time for the next shir.
Is Hashem always going to be hidden though?
You'll have to ask your questions tomorrow. Or next time we're giving you shir. Sunday.
Would you like these back, Rav Horowitz?
If you will keep it, I'll be very pleased. That way you can go over it.
Do you want these back?